Imagine waking up every single morning responsible for feeding 500,000 cows, not 500, not 5,000, 500,000. That's more cows than the population of many major cities, and they all live on one gigantic ranch so massive it stretches beyond the horizon in every direction. This isn't just a farm, it's an empire, a cattle operation so enormous it has its own roads, airstrips, water systems, helicopters, satellites, and millions upon millions of acres of land. Today, we're going inside the world of mega ranches, where agriculture operates at a scale almost impossible to believe. And honestly, the numbers are insane. The ranches we're talking about today are located mostly in places like Australia, Brazil, and the United States. But among them, one stands above almost everything else: Alexandria Station in Australia's Northern Territory. This place is gigantic. The property spans roughly 1.6 million acres. To put that into perspective, that's bigger than some entire countries. Driving from one end of the ranch to the other can take hours, and during certain seasons, parts of the land become so remote they're only reachable by helicopter. That's when you realize something important. This isn't traditional farming anymore. This is industrial-scale livestock management. And running an operation this large requires systems that look more like a military operation than a ranch. At sunrise every morning, teams begin working across enormous distances. Cowboys on horseback still exist here, but now they work alongside helicopters, drones, GPS systems, satellite tracking, and advanced data software, because managing hundreds of thousands of animals manually would be almost impossible. From the sky, the ranch looks endless. Tiny black dots, thousands upon thousands of cattle, spread across giant grasslands stretching 4 miles. Some herds are so large, they literally take hours to move from one location to another. And mustering season, that's where things become truly unbelievable. Helicopters fly low across the landscape, helping guide massive groups of cattle towards sorting yards. Dust storms rise into the air. Workers coordinate through radios. Trucks move equipment across remote roads. It looks less like agriculture and more like a giant logistical operation. But one question immediately comes to mind: how do you even feed this many cows? Surprisingly, nature does most of the work. In Australia, many mega ranches rely heavily on natural grazing land. Native grasses cover enormous areas, allowing cattle to roam freely across giant paddocks. And when we say giant paddocks, we mean giant. Some individual fence sections are larger than entire cities. In certain areas, you can stand in the middle of a paddock and not even see the fence lines in the distance. That's how massive these properties are. But feeding the animals is only part of the challenge. Water is where the numbers become truly mind-blowing. A single adult cow can drink between 30 and 50 liters of water every day. Now multiply that by 500,000 animals. That means these ranches may need up to 25 million liters of water daily, every single day. That's enough to fill multiple Olympic-sized swimming pools. To make this possible, giant ranches operate complex water infrastructure systems. Underground bore pumps extract water from deep aquifers. Pipelines stretch across huge distances. Thousands of water troughs are scattered across remote sections of land. Some ranches now use solar-powered pumping stations to reduce fuel costs and improve sustainability. Without water infrastructure, operations this size simply couldn't exist. And then there's technology. This is where modern mega ranches become incredibly futuristic. Every cow often carries an electronic identification tag. These tiny devices track birth records, vaccinations, health conditions, movement, and weight gain. All that information feeds directly into centralized computer systems. Managers can monitor enormous herds using live data instead of physically checking every animal. Drones now fly over cattle groups, collecting aerial images and counting livestock automatically. Satellite weather systems track storms before they arrive. GPS mapping helps workers navigate land so large it can feel almost endless. Some ranches are even experimenting with virtual fencing technology. Instead of physical fences, cows wear GPS-enabled collars that guide them using sound and gentle signals. It sounds futuristic because it is. The cowboy industry has quietly become one of the most technologically advanced sectors in agriculture. But despite all the innovation, mega ranches still face enormous challenges, and drought is one of the biggest. In places like Australia, severe droughts can destroy grazing conditions for months or even years. When grass disappears, ranches must bring in supplemental feed by truck. Hay, grain, nutritional supplements, and feeding hundreds of thousands of cattle during drought conditions becomes incredibly expensive. Some operations spend millions just keeping animals alive through harsh seasons. Then there are floods. Extreme weather can isolate entire regions. Roads disappear underwater, animals become stranded, and workers sometimes rely entirely on aircraft to access remote sections of the ranch. This lifestyle is tough, remote, demanding, unpredictable, and yet, for many ranching families and workers, it's more than a job. It's a way of life passed down through generations. Now let's talk money, because the financial scale of these operations is just as shocking as the physical size. A single breeding cow can be worth thousands of dollars.
Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of animals, and the total livestock value alone can exceed $1 billion, before even counting the land, and the land itself also worth billions. That's why many of today's largest cattle operations aren't owned by individual cowboys anymore. They're increasingly owned by giant corporations, investment firms, and wealthy agricultural groups. To them, farmland is one of the world's most valuable long-term assets, especially as global food demand continues growing. By 2050, the world population could approach 10 billion people, and demand for meat and protein is expected to rise dramatically in many developing countries. For mega ranches, that demand represents enormous opportunity, but it also creates controversy, because large-scale cattle farming has become one of the most debated industries on Earth. Critics point to environmental concerns like methane emissions, water use, land clearing, and climate impact. Cattle farming contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions globally, and operations this large naturally attract attention, but the industry argues it's evolving rapidly. Many ranches are investing heavily in sustainability programs, solar energy systems, improved grazing rotation, carbon sequestration projects, methane-reducing feed additives. Some ranches are even earning carbon credits by carefully managing grasslands to absorb more carbon from the atmosphere. Technology is changing the industry fast, and the future of mega ranches may look very different from what exists today. But whether people support or criticize these operations, one thing is undeniable. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. 500,000 cows, millions of acres, billions of dollars, entire landscapes dedicated to feeding the world. And when you finally see it from above, massive herds stretching endlessly across the horizon, you realize these ranches are more than farms. They're gigantic living systems, complex machines powered by land, animals, weather, technology, and human coordination all working together every single day. It's one of the largest agricultural operations humanity has ever created, and honestly, it's hard not to be amazed by it. So the next time you see a steak, burger, or carton of milk, remember this. Behind it may be an operation so massive it's visible from the sky. A ranch larger than cities, larger than states, maybe even larger than countries. Would you ever want to visit one of these mega ranches in person? Or do you think farming at this scale is simply too extreme? Tell us in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this look inside one of the biggest cattle operations on Earth, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more unbelievable stories about mega projects, giant industries, and the incredible systems powering our world.